Hello everyone and welcome to Homestead for a Living. I'm in our very warm greenhouse right now, and it's so warm that we're getting ready to start moving plants out. It's already this early in spring in Tennessee getting just too warm in a greenhouse for plants. But as we do so, we're able to continue using this space, stack those functions, as a place to start drying plants. So we can dry our herbs, our teas, whatever plants need dried for preservation. This hot, sweltering building is just absolutely perfect for it. It really speeds up the process. Now what we're drying here in particular is comfrey leaves, bunch of nitrogen fixers and dynamic accumulators, and some pretty interesting herbs and plants as part of an experiment, which is an experiment to make kind of the perfect fertilizer tea. We had a long conversation today, Gabby and I, over the phone with Billy from Permapastures Farm. Great channel, by the way, on YouTube. One of the most informative sources for permaculture and homesteading. Just absolutely love not just the content, but the way he presents knowledge. And we were talking about current events and in particular the fertilizer shortages that are coming up. And the fertilizer shortages are not just something that I've heard from YouTube or from mainstream news. I really try to keep an ear to the ground every time I'm talking to people at feed stores, whether that's the farmers or the people running the feed stores, the people at the local co-op. And without fail, every single one of them has expressed a lot of concern about the fertilizer, not just shortages, but their inability to afford them. And it's becoming just cost prohibitive for them to even plant. And many of them simply will not be planting this year. And so as our food supply is collapsed, it's imperative upon all of us to start stepping in with the solutions. Even if we don't feel like we're the biggest experts or the most experienced farmers in the world, we need to start creating solutions rapidly. That's one reason Gabby and I have been so focused on getting our market garden farm started this year, is because we want to be able to start stepping in and filling these food gaps within our community. But on a broader scale, we were talking today about how to start filling in the fertilizer gaps. And so we do have a problem when it comes to even traditional fertilizers like manures and stuff, and even compost, which is that a lot of farms simply aren't going to be able to scale that up to what they need. They're not going to be able to acquire safe, persistent, herbicide-free manure quickly. And we face that problem here on the farm. We mainly just use compost and manures as our fertilizers and mulches, but it's hard for us to even acquire those fast enough to feed our beds. You know, compost takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, especially if you're doing an intensive method turning that compost. And it takes time to accrue manure. You know, we have to be able to pump feed into those animals and then get the manure out. And I can't just go get any horse or cow manure because a lot of that has persistent herbicides in it and it's not safe to use on our property. It would absolutely destroy our gardens. So a good solution for a lot of folks is liquid fertilizers that are homemade and made primarily from plant ingredients. And a popular one is comfrey tea or things similar, where you take a dynamic accumulating plant which has all sorts of nutrients and minerals in it that it's gathered with its deep tap roots, and either fresh or dried it's placed in water and steeped like tea, and then that water is an incredible fertilizer. And comfrey is just kind of the start of that. You can have a lot of different plants. Each one will have different items. Some might bring nitrogen to the table. Some might bring potassium and other things, which gives you a much more well-rounded fertilizer than say the 10-10-10 stuff you would buy in the store, because they're focused on just a few primary components just that will barely get those vegetables or whatever just kind of up to production, but they're not going to be nutrient filled. They're not going to taste good. They're not going to be very strong and hardy. And that's going to come from more natural fertilizers. So we are on the quest to create kind of the ultimate replicable one that we could scale up then for ourselves and for others. So what we're doing is we're testing out all these herbs, we're drying them out, and then we are steeping them along with some other ingredients, and we're trying all sorts of different things outside of the normal gamut of plants that are used in these. We're dipping a little bit into indigenous knowledge here and studying up on terra preta. Terra preta was a soil they found in the Amazon basin. Utterly fascinating if you're not familiar with it, because it's an artificial soil. It's not native, like it was created millennia ago. Nobody knows quite how long ago terra preta was created, but a civilization, a past large civilization, created that and essentially made the Amazon soil, which is not typically very fertile. They made it fertile for typical agriculture, or for their form of agriculture or horticulture. And many people have been trying to replicate that since, and there's different versions of it. And of course, everybody's got a different version because it's regional. You're not going to have the same inputs or the same needs even wherever you're at. But the idea is pretty cool. And so we've been kind of working on a hillbilly version of Tennessee terra preta and incorporating some of that into that tea, as well as some other components, really drawing upon not just our normal agriculture, but going deep into this forest, which has really old growth type soil and trees down there, and is a study in a properly run system, because we're not going to beat out 50 to 100-year-old forest for efficiency or nutrient dense soil and plants. So going down there and really gathering the soil there and using that in our system and in our experiments, And so as we try to develop that, we're going to start doing an experiment here, and we're going to follow it on the channel. And what we're doing is, I've got these 8 plants, these 8 pots, which I believe I planted comfrey, and it's starting to come up, and I'm pretty sure it's comfrey. I don't always remember everything I planted, but it's all the same plant, and it's the same soil mixture, planted at the same time, the same size pots, getting the same amount of sunlight. And so this will provide us with a really good sample size. The 4 on this side, we're going to water with 5 ounces of regular water every day. And the ones on this side, we're going to water with 5 ounces of our tea mixture every day. And so that'll give us a really nice side-by-side comparison, so we can see how well it works, and see, just really get a comparison of not just how well it works, like what are the actual numbers. We'll break it down. We'll analyze how big is the root system, and how big are the leaves by comparison. And so hopefully this will be a really good illustrative experience, and not just for ourselves, but for y'all that follow along as well. And we'll see how well this fertilizer solution works, and hopefully step in and we'll be able to start filling some of these fertilization gaps that are occurring, and start making the food solutions in our community and beyond. So hope it's a fun experiment for y'all to follow. In the meantime, everybody, stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.